Is Sean O'Malley underrated? Sean is coming off a flawless performance against Chito Vera at UFC 299. But even after that flawless performance, a lot of fans see contenders like Merab Dvalishvili, Corey Sandhagen, Umar Nurmagomedov, and some other contenders as potential favorites in a matchup against Sean O'Malley. And at this point, many, including myself, are wondering whether or not Sean is actually underrated. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Ever since joining the UFC, Sean O'Malley has been extremely impressive. Although early on he wasn't necessarily going up against the highest level of competition, at the end of the day he was doing the most he possibly could with that, as he was putting on phenomenal performances, getting a bunch of finishes, and really just getting his name out there. But after going up against a bunch of guys that probably weren't UFC caliber, Sean O'Malley was then going to face his biggest test of his career, and that was going to be in a matchup versus Pedro Munoz. And going into that matchup, the majority of the fans thought Sean would win, but it definitely would be a significantly bigger test for him than any other fight in the past. But unfortunately, as we all know at this point, that fight ended up in a no contest, as early on in that fight, Sean ended up poking Pedro in the eye and he wasn't able to continue. And although we did see a little bit of action, we couldn't necessarily tell for sure if Sean O'Malley was on that level of fighting top 15 guys yet. But surprisingly, after that no contest against Pedro Munoz, the UFC decided to make Sean's next fight against Petr Yan. And this was extremely surprising matchmaking, because when you look at Petr Yan before the Sean O'Malley fight, this guy was basically unstoppable. Although he did end up losing the belt to Aljamain Sterling, he ended up losing it due to illegally kneeing him when Aljo was on the ground. And when you look back and watch that fight, Petr was absolutely dominating. He was doing whatever he wanted with Aljo on the feet, he was doing whatever he wanted with him on the ground as well, he was just throwing him around, and overall it just looked like he was on his way to probably a finish against Aljamain Sterling. Now, although Petr also ended up losing his next matchup against Aljo, it was an extremely close fight and it probably could have went either way. But regardless of that fact, when you look at all the other matchups that Petr was going up against, he was able to dominate virtually everybody. So to put him up against a guy in Sean O'Malley, who is very unproven up until that point, it was definitely very curious matchmaking. But as we all know at this point, Sean O'Malley ended up winning that matchup. Now obviously it was an extremely close fight, and whether or not you thought it was a robbery is kind of besides the point. The biggest thing that we learned from that matchup is Sean O'Malley's legit. Not only was he ready for top 15 guys, but he was also ready for the top guys in the bantamweight division. And after that impressive victory over Petr, Sean's next matchup was going to be for the bantamweight title against Aljamain Sterling. And going into that Aljo fight, a lot of people are similarly going into the Petr fight, thought that Aljo would be able to run through Sean O'Malley. People thought that Sean didn't necessarily deserve this title shot, as they didn't think he beat Petr. A lot of others thought even if he did deserve the title shot, he wasn't going to beat Aljo. Aljo was a guy who's phenomenal on the ground, has great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu, and fans just thought he would be able to take Sean down and submit him. But obviously, as we all know at this point, Sean ended up finding a beautiful TKO finish on Aljo in the second round. And after beating Aljo, Sean became the champ of the bantamweight division, which was something that virtually nobody expected just a few years ago. Now after that, Sean's next fight was going to be up against Chito Vera, and I would say going into that matchup, the majority of fans did think Sean was going to win, but at the same time there were a lot of fans that thought Chito would be able to find a way to get Sean out of there. But obviously, as we all know at this point, Sean ended up having the best performance of his career. He put on a phenomenal 5-round performance where he dominated virtually every second of the fight. And the only reason why Sean wasn't able to get a finish in that matchup was due to the insane durability that Chito possesses. But a question that a lot of you may be wondering at this point is Sean O'Malley underrated? Because although Sean has had some very impressive victories, like over Petr Yan, like over Aljamain Sterling, and most recently over Chito Vera, a lot of people still think there are other guys in the division that are better than Sean O'Malley and would be able to beat him relatively easily. Like for example, Umar Nurmagomedov, Merab Dvalishvili, a lot of people also think that Petr Yan would beat Sean in a rematch, and of course there's some other examples as well in the bantamweight division. Well, in my opinion, I do think Sean is a little bit underrated. When you look at Sean O'Malley from the outside, it probably appears that this guy doesn't take the sport seriously. Maybe he's not as good as the UFC would like you to think he is, but at the end of the day, when you watch this guy perform, it's pretty clear that he's as legit as it gets in the bantamweight division. Watching this guy perform on the feet is just a treat. What Sean does extremely well out there is he establishes his jab. And really what that jab does is it serves two separate purposes. The first purpose is to throw off his opponent. It becomes very difficult for his opponents to get any offense going if they consistently have that jab in their face. But besides that, the other purpose is to set up Sean's other shots. Sean does a phenomenal job at utilizing that jab and throwing a left or right straight behind it, using that jab and throwing some hooks or crosses behind it. And overall, when you look at Sean's boxing, a lot of it is actually predicated off his jab. But besides Sean's great boxing ability, he also has a phenomenal ability to kick. Sean does a great job at throwing kicks to the legs, kicks to the body, as well as kicks to the head. And in terms of his head kicks, he's able to do so in a lot of different ways, whether you talk about the traditional head kick or even a spinning wheel kick. So overall, when you look at Sean's stand-up game, there's obviously a lot to love. But in my opinion, a couple of things that jump out to me personally is A, his footwork. He utilizes his footwork extremely well. In my opinion, I think he has the best footwork in the entire bantamweight division, and I think due to that, he's a very difficult matchup for anybody, whether you talk about wrestlers or strikers. But besides his great footwork, he's also extremely fast with the shots that he does throw, and he's able to catch his opponents off guard with some of those shots, and he's able to find TKO finishes that way. So overall, to answer the question of the video on whether or not Sean is underrated, I definitely think the answer is yes. I think Sean up until this point has proven that he's one of the elite guys in the bantamweight division. Obviously his striking is absolutely elite, his footwork is absolutely elite, his wrestling is even a little bit better than people may think, and overall I think when you look at the complete package of who Sean O'Malley is, it's pretty clear that this guy is definitely on that championship caliber level. Now with all that being said, do I think that Sean's going to beat every contender that comes his way? No, obviously I don't think that. I think there are some difficult matchups out there for him, particularly like Merab and also Umar, but originally before the Chito fight, I did think that Merab would absolutely run through Sean O'Malley, and maybe he still may win, but after watching that Chito fight, I definitely did change my opinion slightly. Because what Sean proved in that Chito fight is he's able to utilize that footwork for 5 rounds to stay away from his opponents and keep himself safe. So if Sean's able to utilize that same footwork to stay away from Merab, I do think there is a very real possibility that he'll be able to find a TKO finish on Merab. Now obviously if Merab's able to get close to Sean and if he's able to get his hands on him, I do think he's going to have a lot of success taking O'Malley down and holding him down as well. And even if Sean does get back up, obviously Merab's known for this, he has a phenomenal gas tank and he's going to be able to take Sean down consistently. So overall the point that I'm trying to make is obviously there are difficult matchups for Sean. Obviously there's some matchups that he could potentially lose, but at the end of the day, I think it's pretty clear that Sean is on that elite level. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening throughout the rest of Sean O'Malley's career, but I will say I am extremely excited to see what does. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Sean O'Malley is underrated, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.